a child could, for the very first time in their life, approach a officer of the state of California, a medical professional of the state of California, and say, I want to begin transgender health care in this state. I want to begin to transition from my biologically created sex to this gender identity that I have. The state of California says they will ignore the rights and privileges of parents in that home state for the purposes of giving that child health care.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Our Watch. I am Tim Thompson. We've got another crazy bill here in the state of California, SB107. We want to talk to you about it today. In order to talk about it, we have brought on a very, in my opinion, very qualified person to talk about this, Jonathan Keller, president of the California Family Council. Jonathan, always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Great to be with you, Tim, and all your viewers and listeners as well. Thank you.
Just real quickly, if you would, for the viewers who may not have heard of the California Family Council, will you just tell them what you guys do?
Sure. So we're a state-based public policy organization. We are explicitly Christian. We're non-denominational, but we believe that God and His Word have a lot to say about public policy. And so our mission statement is advancing God's design for life, family, and liberty through California's church, capital, and culture.
Amen to that. You know, I always tell people when they ask me, where do you get your information from? I've got, a handful of very trusted sources. California Family Council is one of them. And when we get to the end of the program here, I want to talk to you about how people can connect with you and even support your ministry. So before we get to that, let's talk about SB 107. This is a very hot topic. California wants to take over children's lives. And this is showing that yet again. Talk to us about SB 107 and what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Well, yeah, this is one of the worst bills that we've seen, not just this year, but in all honesty, Tim, really in the time that I've been here with California Family Council. From time to time, we have all sorts of bills on different topics. As I mentioned at the start, our mission involves life, family, and liberty. So there's a lot of abortion-related bills that always come up. There's a really bad one later this year with Proposition 1, trying to expand abortion into the Constitution. There's lots of bad bills related to religious liberty. We all saw what happened over the last couple of years where Gavin Newsom was trying to shut down churches while he was keeping abortion clinics and casinos and strip clubs open because of COVID. But then you have bills on the family front that interact with how parents raise their kids. Maybe it's homeschooling, maybe it is curriculum. All of those we're used to. But then you have something like SB 107 that is really a full frontal assault on parental rights itself and whether or not moms and dads actually have the freedom and the authority and the responsibility to raise their kids as they believe God intended. And Tim, also the thing that's shocking is that this bill, SB 107, it is not just targeting California parents. Obviously, for us at California Family Council, we primarily focus on serving families here in the Golden State. But I'm sure you have viewers that watch your show and listen to your show that maybe they're even ex-Californians. Right. They've moved to Texas or Tennessee or Florida. The sad thing is, the scary thing is that State Senator Scott Wiener and the entire Democratic Party, by endorsing this bill and by moving forward with it, they are actually declaring open season for any child anywhere in the country if they find themselves within the borders of the state of California.
Yeah, I think about the reality of this. Let's just say that I have a neighbor, and my neighbor's kids come to my house, and I determine I don't like what your parents are doing. I'm going to take over being your parent, and there's nothing your parent can do about it because you're in my house now, and now I'm going to do what I want to with you, and I don't give a rip what your parents have to say. That's essentially what the state of California is doing. If a child runs away from home because mom and dad said, we're not going to put you through transgender therapy because this is irreversible damage is going to be done to your body, and they run away from home and run to California, the state of California says, we're going to be your parent now and take over temporary emergency jurisdiction over that child's life. This is incredibly wicked to me when I think about it in those terms. And that really, truly is what this bill seeks to do, right?
That's absolutely the case. And now the justification is several months ago, the state of Texas announced, Governor Abbott and the Attorney General Ken Paxton, they announced that they were going to begin opening investigations into cases where parents had taken their children to get cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers, and in some cases even amputations of healthy body parts because of so-called transgender identities. And look, Tim, I think we need to acknowledge, first off, as followers of Christ, we live in a broken world. We live in a sinful, fallen society. And it's absolutely true that some people of all ages, even very young people, do tragically suffer from gender dysphoria. They have a incongruity with what their biological sex is, their biological given nature is that they were created with, and sometimes their heart and their head do not match that physical reality. I think we need to acknowledge as followers of Jesus that we can love those people. We must love those people. We should show compassion. We should show grace and support. But what we should never do is lie to those children. We should never lie to their parents. We should never tell them that they can, through a combination of drugs and surgeries, change their nature from a boy to a girl or from a girl to a boy. I mean, we know in going back all the way to Genesis that God created us in his image, male and female. And there's nothing that any one of us can do to fundamentally alter or transform that inherent dignity and that inherent nature that we've been created with. And yet what California is saying, again, SB107, this would say that if a child finds themselves in the state of California, this could be, as you said, maybe a parent that is in a custody dispute. They leave the state of Texas, they leave the state of Florida or Tennessee, they come to California. Regardless of whether or not there's a custody dispute, regardless of whether or not the child's parent who brought them is on the losing end of that custody dispute, if they say to a doctor, if they say to the state of California, well, I'm bringing my child here, we're refugees because I'm trying to get my child transgender health care, that would mean all of a sudden that the state of California would ignore the other parent's rights. And Tim, what's even worse than that is, as bad as that would be, as tragic as that would be to see the state of California weaponize this transgender issue as a way to punish a dissenting spouse in another state, what's even worse than that is that if you read the fine print of the bill, it doesn't even have to be an actual biological parent that is assuming responsibility for the child. If the child finds themselves here in the state of California for any reason, maybe they're visiting a cousin, maybe they're here on a school field trip. If a child under the age of 18 goes to a state official, they go to a medical professional and they say, hey, I am struggling or I'm having gender dysphoria. I want to begin transgender healthcare, and my parents, my biological parents who have never been judged unfit, there's been no adjudication by a family court in their home state. There's never even been a police report or even anything filed. A child could, for the very first time in their life, approach a officer of the state of California, a medical professional in the state of California, and say, I want to begin transgender healthcare in this state. I want to begin to transition from my biologically created sex to this gender identity that I have. The state of California says they will ignore the rights and privileges of parents in that home state for the purposes of giving that child health care. I mean, essentially, it incentivizes a complete free-for-all for runaways to come to California and be able to completely reject the will of their parents.
Right. And when you look at it in those terms, you know, we talk about the emergency jurisdiction that they'll take over that child's life. My next question would be, who's going to pay for it? You know, they're saying we're going to now be, for lack of a better term, we're going to be your parent. Well, who's going to pay for these things that need to be done? How long does this take? Who's going to be in charge of this child during that time frame? You know, the child has to eat. The child has to be clothed. The child has to be housed. All of these things now come into play. Where is the money for that going to come?
Well, Tim, you're absolutely right. California, unfortunately, normally we would say as fiscal conservatives that, look, it's a great thing when a state is spending within their means, that they're being responsible. In California, though, we saw a gigantic budget surplus the last couple of years. That's not because we have been so smart about cutting spending. That's not because we've been so wise about frugality. It's because, number one, we got a huge infusion of cash that they printed from the federal budget, massive COVID stimulus from the nation's treasury, and we also have raised taxes and massively taxed our own citizens. So as a result, unfortunately, California has a huge windfall in our budget this year, and they are already talking about using that money in a really perverse way to incentivize all sorts of behavior that I think most citizens are not in favor of. Tim, tragically, on the one hand, we are saying that we're going to not provide resources and support for women that find themselves to be in an unplanned pregnancy and want to deliver that child, want to parent that child. Over and over, we hear from the abortion industry that, well, part of the reason why women need abortion is for fiscal reasons. You know, Katie Porter, an infamous congresswoman from Southern California, said, look, inflation and a recession, that's the reason why we need abortion. I mean, basically, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but she essentially said women need to have the right to take the lives of their unborn children because they might not be able to afford to feed them. And at the same time, we're telling moms, if you can't afford a child, don't worry, we'll help you kill it. At the same time, we're saying, don't worry, if you're from another state and your parents don't want you to get transgender health care, we'll pay for it and we'll make sure that you are a ward of the state. You're a foster child and we'll pay these new foster parents to take care of you. So, Tim, it's a complete double message and it's a complete misallocation of funds, in my opinion.
Right. Right. So we got to push back against this. California Family Council has been doing just that. What does this pushback look like?
Well, right now we've seen this bill, unfortunately, it's called a gut and amend, which means that rather than spending a year or even 2 years to go through the normal process with thoughtful hearings and lots of rallies and pushback, Senator Scott Wiener very shrewdly basically gutted all of the language from one of his existing bills that was on its way to final passage, and he shoved in all this language just in the last several months. As a result, this bill is likely going to be on Governor Newsom's desk by the end of August. I mean, that literally is just a few short weeks away.
Yeah.
So we really have to make our voices heard now. You can go to our website, which is californiafamily.org. You can sign up. You can read more about it. And we do have opportunities for you to call your legislators to make your voices heard in the last few days where there could be an opportunity to at least raise awareness about it and at least try to, if they are going to be determined to push this through, we need to make this as painful as possible and warn every single parent the new regime that is going to be coming for their children.
Right. The pushback is so important. I can't stress that to our viewers enough. We have to let our voices be heard. And, there's this thought, well, it's so offensive. When you're bringing this stuff up, you're offending people. Look, the time of worrying about that really needs to be over. We've got children's lives at stake. These children are going to be subjected to things that are irreversible. It's going to cause lifetime dependency upon the government, dependency upon medication, and give irreversible damage to their bodies and rob them, many of them, of the beauty and the joy of being a parent. So it's so sad to watch what's going on. The California Family Council has been really a leader. You're a vanguard in many of these things. So one more time, how can people connect with you? How can they follow you guys on social media and then even support your ministry?
Absolutely. Well, our website, very simply, is just californiafamily.org. And you can find out all about us there. We've got a ton of articles and resources, and literally hundreds of articles that we have published over the years on this issue and many other topics. We are a 501c3 nonprofit Christian ministry, so we do appreciate any tax-deductible support you can give us. That's always a blessing. We appreciate your prayers. And if you also want to follow us on social media, just look for California Family Council on any of the social sites, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. If you just search that, you should be able to find us there. And then we also have links to all those sites there on our website, californiafamily.org.
All right. Thank you so much. Jonathan Keller, President, California Family Council. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Tim. God bless.
God bless you. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We're going to continue to bring this type of good, solid, true information so you can be an informed voter and engaged in this process. So God bless you. See you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.